the emotional impact of what just happened, I wasn't quite prepared for. That was very powerful and very beautiful. My name is Steve Holmquist, and on behalf of James's family, loved ones, and his friends, I'd like to thank you all for coming to his celebration of life. I would like to begin by reading something that was written by James' brother that he asked to be read today, in person. Every time he and Carolyn came to visit us in Georgia, they both loved us, our kids, our grandkids. Playtime was not only fun, it could be intense. Over the past year, he constantly battled this disease. He was optimistic about getting stronger and about feeling better, even though he had many ups and downs. There was a time when he came home from the hospital and seemed to be doing a little bit better. He bought a car, told us he couldn't wait to drive it out to visit us. Let me say a few things about growing up in Memphis with my brother. We were the only children of our parents. My brother was 3 years older, and he frequently reminded me that being the firstborn gave him special privileges. I always looked up to him. And today, our family in Georgia will be celebrating his life as well. I remember I was very excited to introduce him to my future bride. I kept telling Jan over and over again that I couldn't wait with the wonderful choice I had made. And he loved her from that very moment. I also remember when we were in high school, I was still a junior in high. He joined the city boxing team, and he did very well. He boxed Golden Gloves for the state and for his weight class. He was known extremely well for his reputation as being a pretty tough guy, and nobody really messed around with him too much. I could go on and on telling childhood stories of how he loved me as a younger brother. He was an artist and a musician and encouraged me as well. He always encouraged me in my music, and we discussed his new ventures frequently. But I know that he held a very special bond with my wife, Jan, as well. What a special brother. We all miss him, and we love him very much. And with that, I would like to bring up James's son, Jimmy, for a few.
I'd like to say I had like the coolest dad in high school. He played in all the bars in the Verde Valley, and so when we weren't playing Dungeons and Dragons, we would sneak out and go to these bars, and I knew my dad would be playing, and it was easy to get into. Well, back then it was kind of loosey-goosey in the laws, you know, drinking age was like 18, so I'm like, I could pass, but the bouncers all knew I was underage, and they didn't care, and I'd get a nod, and we'd all go in, and we'd have a good time. And I was a roadie at like age 16, carrying in speakers and cables and things like that. Learned how to shoot pool. I got pretty good shooting pool, by the way. And during those times, you know, Dad burned the candle at both ends. He really did. He'd be up at 0500 to go swing a hammer to beat the Arizona heat. He was a carpenter. And so he'd be out there swinging the hammer all day, and then in the evenings he would be playing music with the bands. There's some band members here, and him and Thomas they got a little crazy, and they had a lot of fun. And but the nice thing about Dad is he still had a lot of time to teach me some of the basics, you know, how to take care of a car, you know, change the tire, put the oil in. He gave me a lot of carpentry tips, you know, the rule, measure twice, cut once. Although I think he forgot that when he didn't measure his finger properly when he lopped it off. Surprisingly, he still played music even after that. And you know, those kind of skills enabled me to get my contractor's license in California, so it was really important. But I think the most important things that he taught me was how to be calm and cool and respect and be kind to others. And you know, those skills I use today. I'm a property manager in Las Vegas, and being respectful of others and kind to others has probably saved my life a couple of times, because it's kind of unruly there sometimes. So anyway, I still try to emulate that calm and coolness today, and I thank him for it. And then his next profession was a firefighter and a paramedic, and he loved doing that. I mean, he just passionate. There's some folks right here can really speak to that, and I think he just loves saving people and helping other people. And I think if he was physically able, he would still be doing that today. After that, he retired and did some recording in the studio in the back, and he did a lot of golf and some fishing. He loved to go fishing at Lake Roosevelt, although I haven't seen any pictures of fish. I'm not convinced there's any fish in Lake Roosevelt, but maybe you guys know better than I do. And then later, you know, he didn't want to become a burden to mom, so he moved to Vegas. And I got really close to Dad. We'd have coffee in the mornings. It was very special. He was chatty Cathy. You know, when I was in high school, he was really quiet as a mouse, and you hardly ever got a word out of him. But man, he moved to Vegas, and he was all over the place. Amazon lost one of their best customers. We got a package a couple of weeks ago, and I went online to make sure he still wasn't ordering stuff. But you know, he really loved music, and he loved writing music. And I don't know, to me, music is magic. It just comes out of nowhere, and it comes down to musicians, and I think that's what he's doing now. So there's a real popular phrase that I'm going to add music to. And in conclusion, may peace and music be with you.
I wanted to thank everybody for coming that lived near and those who came far. Thank you for coming to celebrate with us James's life. People have many different sides. James was no exception. The first time I met him was at an outdoor concert in Tucson where he was playing. And that was a really nice way to be introduced to James, his musical side. Another side of him that was very quirky was his sense of humor. I remember one time Carolyn, James, Jimbo, and we went to San Francisco. We were waiting for a trolley car. I knew nothing about trolley cars. And as they come in to pick you up, this blast of air comes up through the tracks. They both grabbed my ankles at the same time, and I think they rolled laughing for 3 or 4 days. Yes, that was another side of James. Another side was his intellectual and business side. You know, he started the volunteer firefighting in Bowie. And then him and Carolyn came here to Superior, where he became a full-time firefighter. Many accomplishments up here, and he was so proud of them when he became a paramedic. And later, he found that he had a talent for writing grants. He got a lot of things for the fire department, and he was so proud of that. And I wanted to thank all you firefighters in the back and over to the side. Thank you for such a lovely place to celebrate James's life. There's another side that some of you might not know about James. This truly tells how special he was and how caring he was. In 2009, Brad Paisley wrote a song. First time I heard it, it just blew me away. I'm like, that is James Gray to the T. The song goes something like this. when a single mom goes out on a date with somebody new, it always winds up being like a job interview. We wondered if she would ever meet the one who would love the child, not turn around and run. And the chorus goes something like this. It seems so strange to me to go from something missing to a real family. I look back at all the things he did for me and realize he was a dad. He didn't have to be. Because he was a dad, he didn't have to be. And I thank you, Carolyn, for picking him to raise such an awesome man.
Thank you, Barb. That was beautiful. You know, James was a lot of different things to different people in this room. James was a husband. He was a father. He was a fisherman. I don't think he was very good. But he liked to think he was pretty good. He was a fireman. He was a musician. And that's how I came to know James. And really appreciate that sense of humor. That slow, kind of southern drawl in the voice. And this really warped sense of humor gave James a very lovable personality.
The way I met James Gray, and I always call him James Gray, not James, just always James Gray, is that he was driving down 60 with his ambulance, and he had dropped somebody off at the hospital. And sure enough, I had an accident about that time. So he just whipped around, and pulled down, and took care of me and fixed me up. But, well, I even got off my paperwork. I have a poem that I'd like to share with you at the end. Let's see, I'd like to share with you a poem with you that is over 60 years old, that helped me through many, many tough times as this. But first, I'll tell you that I met James on the road, 15 almost plus years away. And we became good friends, ate many, many breakfasts together, and he told me many stories about the fishing. And he was very good at casting out the fly rod. We went many, many places. And a little humor here that I wasn't going to put in here, but every Christmas we'd go out Christmas shopping, him and I. And we'd buy something for Carolyn. And my wife always liked some perfume. And it was heaven sent perfume. And the only place you could buy it was at Victoria's Secrets in the mall. And the first time we were there, he said, "Oh, come on, you can do this." I said, "No, I don't think I can do this." But he was always behind me, pushing me through these very delicate pieces of cloth. Because they always have the perfume at the back of the store. And every year we'd do the same thing because Sally liked that perfume. And of course, he would get Carolyn a nice sweater, which was easy to get. That was just one of the things that he would do. And many times we talked at breakfast. We had, through 15 years, we really had a lot of breakfasts. And it was always that, did I pay last time? I says, "I'm not sure, James, but why do I have to buy your wife breakfast too?" Because he always took a sandwich back there. Is that not true, Carolyn? But anyway, I'm getting off my card here. I had this all figured out, really. Took me all day yesterday and all day today. And let's see here, okay. We spoke many times in the morning about things, about his son and his wife, he had two families. His personal family with you and Carolyn, and then his fire family. We didn't talk much about the fire family because I think the job he had to do, and all the rest of you gentlemen back there have a tough job to do. And you kind of keep it to yourself, but occasionally we would talk about it. And also maybe lie a little bit about the fishing. Let's see here. I'm sorry I'm not doing too well with this.
It's perfect.
You're doing fine.
Okay. And I'd like to share part of the Proverbs, I think it's 20:30, where it says, a wise man hangs around with wise men and you will become wise. For 15 years I stuck to him like glue because he was a very smart man. And as you know, he did a lot for the city and the fire department. And he did love his music. He did help me with, I play a little bit of music. I try. And he did make a video of me, but he said, you know, it's not too good, Ken. But here's the CD for you. And a picture of you playing in public one time. And another time he took me to a ball game, the only ball game I ever went to in Phoenix. And he had the tickets, and so we went to it. And I don't know, about the fifth inning, they all sat down in the field. I said, James, what's going on? He said, they're on break or a commercial break. I said, do they really do that? He said, yeah, they do that. But he had to drive out of that stadium with all that traffic. And one other time he took me to, I told him I'd like to do a bucket list of hitting golf balls. So right down to Ironwood we went. And I didn't know there was that many balls in one little bucket of golf balls. But that again, he didn't think I did very well because they all went sideways. And this guy next to her, hey, don't you quit? So anyway, he said, you're not too good of a golfer either. And he was an avid golfer. Well, let me get to the poem that I'd like to read to you that helped me out so well. But weep not in tears of sorrow because I am gone away, but weep with tears of gladness for the place I have today. I know your hearts are heavy with sorrows that you bear, but God has called me home. My place is really there. My stay on earth completed, my final rest is won. I've received the greatest blessings to dwell with God's own Son. Thank you.
My name is Ron. I knew James as a fireman. Now, not this kind of fireman. James's job was to keep the fire burning, not put it out. And that was at a Native American Sundance that he attended with Carolyn. He camped right next to our camp. His camp was far more elaborate than ours. But we would sometimes get coffee in the morning. And he would work on keeping a fire going at the dance, which is really essential. It has to burn the whole ceremony, not go out. But this was in a forest, and so no mistakes. And he did not make any mistakes. And but I have a hard time recognizing his picture because I remember James as covered in sweat and black from the charcoal. His clothes were completely dirty, and that was his vision, my vision of him every time. And he was worked there every year, the whole time at the dance, except when people got poison ivy. And then he would be running around trying to dress them and telling them, you need to learn how to recognize the plant and stay away from it. Anyway, I'm wondering, in fact, if anybody ever told James he was supposed to put a hook on the end of that line? Anyway, he's a wonderful man. I really miss him. I really will. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Hello. My name's Trey Steinbeck. I'm a good friend of Jimmy's, and I think we've got like a 40-year friendship maybe at this point. So, I think one sign of a great person is who they choose to surround themselves with. And I first met James through Jimmy, and I realized, you know, this is a great guy, and this is why Jimmy's great. And I started to recognize a lot of traits in Jimmy that I really liked, and I recognized they all came from, many of them came from James. And so I don't have a super intimate relationship with James, but through Jimmy, I really have a lot of respect for him. And of course, my first real meeting was at Chicago Bar and Grill. You know, we were roommates in college, and so Jimmy would take me down to see his dad play, and as he said, it's very cool. And James is just such a great guy, very humble. You know, sat at our table, chatted away with us, and it was just very gentle soul and intelligent and kind. You know, you have such a position of power when you're a musician, and it could go so many different ways. And it's interesting how James did that. And then I got to know Carolyn, and I realized she's another great person that James chose. And they've sort of become my adopted parents. I like them a little better than my parents. So Carolyn would always make me pecan pie, and I think I got a true depth of James's kindness because I decided I wanted to start remodeling homes in Tucson. And this was when I'm not sure if they were in Tucson at the time, but they had a rental property, and I explained that I wanted to start, you know, in course of conversation, I was explaining that I wanted to start remodeling, and I was searching for a house, and he sold me my first house to remodel. Deep discount, and he explained all the problems that it had and all the secret things that you would never know, and that a seller wouldn't usually tell you. So that's really where I got a depth of knowledge. With money, you know, he wasn't attached to a lot of money that way, you know, because we could have made a lot more money off that. So there's a lot of things that I think James is so great about, and I'm enjoying the people that he has surrounded himself with. So I'm going to read a little short poem. It's called The Dress of Flesh. It's by Erica Young. Perhaps the dress of flesh is no more than a familiar garment that grows looser as one diets on death, and perhaps we discard it or give it to the poor in spirit who have not learned yet what a blessing it is to go naked.
I just want to say a few words. I'm the ex-mayor of Superior, Michael Heen, and Mr. Gray, I always called him Mr. Gray, and that's how our family always recognized, Captain Gray on the fire department was Mr. Gray. You know, he stood by me for all those years. I served like 13 years, and he was always there in the fire department. You know, the fire department had its ups and downs, but we kept it all together. And I always looked at him because he was always the calm guy. Always like kept looking at me at times. Just calm down. Just calm down. Okay. So he was just Mr. Calm. You know, and I figured why he was so calm. He's into music. No wonder. I was just like, I didn't know he was into that. I knew Miss Gray was because she kind of helped my son in music. So, but I just want to really appreciate your dad. You know, he helped build this department because of the time as volunteer, and my goal was as the mayor. Even during the town wasn't prospering, but I knew providing emergency care was very critical for the building of this community. And I said my goal is to get a 24/7 fire department. Who would have a 24/7 fire department? But that was the goal. You know, the staff, they worked on it. I mean, Mr. Gray, like I said, looked for money, did everything to twist things. with Todd and everybody, because we wanted to provide with the community Superior 24-hour service to the community, and we have. And so I'm kind of like glad, wow, we have full-time fire people. That's amazing for the size of our community. And I look back and like, it was a struggle, but I always looked at Mr. Gray sitting at that table, going over the numbers. I'm going like, this is impossible, but he was always calm. So, and I remember even on a personal things, lost a family, people were sick. When he responded, he was the most calm guy in the room. Where everybody was freaking out. He's just very calm. And I remember the day I lost my mother-in-law, he was so calm. Because he always gave the family, says he gave them their time to spend with that individual. So he was a very calm person. And I remember, seeing Ken, they go to breakfast, after he got out of the department. And I remember that when I left the department, he looked at me because he knew I was kind of like upset what happened, and I was leaving. And he goes, Mayor, we did good. And I looked at him, I said, yeah, Mr. Gray, we did do good. So.
Thank you so much.
Hello all, hi Carolyn. My name's Carlos, one of probably the original full-timers that started here back in '96. We have some other volunteers and full-timers that we had when James came on. I remember James used to drive to Bowie Fire from here in Superior before he got hired here. And then once he got hired here, talk about dedication. That guy, sorry, that man was so dedicated to this department, it wasn't funny. He had a heart of gold. He didn't care who you were, what was wrong, he was there for you. And I remember we had lost a few people because they got hired at other places. And James and I'm pretty sure it was like 3 months straight, we worked every day together. Every day we would take the ambulance home. I would take it one day, he would take it one day. I would take it one day, he would take it one day. And we didn't go anywhere. That's how dedicated this man was to this department. And I remember when I got hired down here in Apache Junction, and I got that call, and we were driving the ambulance on a call, and I was stopped, I promise. I stopped at the stop sign, and all he heard was, Yahoo! That's what I did in the front. He's like, you got hired, didn't you? And I go, yes, sir, I did. And he was so proud. And James ended up becoming the assistant chief here. I think Todd at the time was a fire chief, or was one of our chiefs. And James, he did a lot for this organization. We have an old Station 1, it's still over there. And that's where James and I actually had our career. That's where he started his career. So, I really didn't get to see him. We don't really see much of our, when we move on, we don't go visit people like we used to, or like we do. And I actually had to run on call on him one day when he was in AJ. And I was like, I couldn't believe who I was running on. And I was like, James, he's like, Carlos, I can take care of myself. I go, no, it's my turn, bud. It's my turn. So, we'll miss him. And again, thanks for your husband. Without them, and like the mayor said, without them, Superior wouldn't be where it is today. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hello everybody, thank you for coming today. My name is John Bettis. I'm the fire chief currently right now for the Superior Fire Department. And I started just probably a year or two before James started. We worked together as firefighters, got some calls, did some good things. James, like Captain Rivera said, he was dedicated to this fire department. He did a good job. He was very nice, calm to people. The door we brought him in today is the door he came out of his station and went to work. As soon as those tones dropped, James went to work. I worked with him a lot of calls, and I've like you said, those southern draw people talk about. We're on this call, and he was wanting to help his people, and I said, James, hang on. Let's make sure we got help come. Make sure Queen Valley's coming. Hey, come on, man. He had that, voice. So I was sitting in the car calling AJ, calling Queen Valley, and it was like 6 people, 2 firefighters. Our truck wasn't there yet. And he comes back in that car and goes, come on, man, you gotta get at it. He had a little voice, you know, come down, James, I get there. And I seen James, he got excited that day as the most ever saw him get excited, was that. Otherwise, real calm, did a good job. I like working with him. I was captain, he was assistant chief. And he cared about what he did. He cared about the people he worked on, he cared about the people he ran on. Today, at 3 o'clock when we walked in that door, there's a class of young aspiring firefighters who are taking a 1 and 2 class for fire certification in Oracle that paused for a minute for James Gray at 3 o'clock. They said, I'm stopping my class or extricating, putting fires out. I'm gonna stop it. We're paused to honor James Gray. And they did that today for him.
Thank you.
And these guys will work, all of us, we call the Copper Corridor, volunteer firefighters, doing what he wants to do, what he did, what he loved doing. You know, so he was a great man. I like working with him. You know, good times, bad times, and other times, but I want to miss him. You know, he was not just a brother, he was a friend. And I'm gonna miss James.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Melanie Lake, and I had the pleasure of working with James probably 25 years ago here in Superior. So we ran a lot of calls together, spent a lot of time together, had a lot of fun, ran some really bad calls with him, and you know, he was always just a great partner, and I really learned a lot from him. When I went to medic school, I finished up medic school and I got my certification, and he gave me a stethoscope, a really nice Littman stethoscope, and to this day I still carry it with me in my fanny pack. So I still have you know, part of James with me, and it's just an honor to work with him. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my God. You can tell already. I'm one of Jane Russell's sons and Bob Waterfield, NFL Hall of Fame. And I met James and Carolyn and Jimmy. Was about 80, 82, somewhere in there in Sedona. And I've been on the road for a long time before that. And here's this southern guy talking real slow. And I said, is this guy on Valiums or something? What's going on here? Anyway, we became really good brothers. We played in many bands together. And one day I said, hey James, I got to go to Hollywood and watch my mother do a show. Yeah, I said, do you want to go along? And he goes, sure. And I said, I'm going to freak this guy out, because Hollywood is a whole nother world. So we get down there, and we get about 3/4 of the way down, and we're just so tired we couldn't make it all the way to LA. So we pull over into this motel. I swear to God, it was the Cockroach Motel when we woke up the next morning. We got into that room, and there were cockroaches running across. The pool was empty. There were frogs in the pool. And James is looking at me going, oh, this is really a pretty cool trip so far. And so, anyway, we get down there, we got our jeans on, and we got our t-shirts on, and we get down to LA, and it was a pretty big show. There was a lot of stars there. Charlton Heston, you know, and on and on. And my mother was gonna sing with Connie Haynes and Burl Davis. And we get down there and we walk in with our jeans and t-shirt. She looks at us and goes, I don't know you people. She goes, she gets her age and says, take this guy down to Penny's and get him some shirts and shoes and some pants, and we'll let you in. Anyway, we went from the Cockroach Motel to this really nice suite. James is freaking out. He's looking around all these stars. And on our way back, he was pretty quiet. And in closing here, the fish story, this is no lie. We're at Roosevelt. We're sitting on the shoreline. Look at Carolyn. We're sitting on the shoreline, and I said, James, there's a fish right there, right on the shore. And he's huge. He's huge. And I said, throw your line out. he threw his line out, and he pulled in this largemouth bass, this big. But I've never ever seen him catch a fish other than that. True story. True story. He was definitely a brother. He was a great guy. We played in many bands together, many seasons we were together, and God bless Jimmy and Barb and Carolyn, and just comes from a great family. He's just a great guy. And God bless everybody for coming today. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks, Thomas.
Well, I'm one of those infamous band people that populated James' life. And this portion of his life, unfortunately, I didn't get to be a part of or even know much about. He didn't talk much with me. We dropped into the scene in Sedona in the mid-'80s. And I put an ad in the paper because that's what I do for a living. And so these guys called me, and well, Tom and I were some pretty active people on that day. We're kind of wild guys. We'd both go different directions. And what I always felt about James is he always did have that cruise control going. Okay? I'd be over here in the corner going off about an arrangement or something, and he'd just kind of chime in with that calm tone. And okay. Well, long story short, we had to move away for some family work back east, and it took me 13 years to get back out here. Worked about another 10 of those, and then just over the last couple of years, through Tom, I was able to get back with James. And we didn't get to visit a lot, but we exchanged some music online, and he was just always a wonderful person to work with, to be with. I introduced him to one of my friends that lives down here. He's also a church worship leader, and I've known him since 1970. I said, you gotta meet this guy. So one time he came down to the park, and he said, later, when I had to let him know the news, he said, you know, I only got to talk to him about 15 minutes, but I felt like I knew him my whole life. And I think y'all were wonderful to have all those years with James in such an environment. And I enjoyed every minute I got to be with him.
Thank you.
Bless you all.
Hi. I've known James since I was 14 years old. I was 14 and he was about 17 in Warner Robins, Georgia. And it was so interesting because we kind of all came out west together within a year of each other. And for me, knowing James that long, he was, and I call him, and Carolyn too, that kind of ride or die friend. Didn't matter what I was going through, they were always there for me. And I remember one time, and I'm not going to go into the gory details, I was going through a terrible divorce. And I had to go have somewhere to go because my ex-husband was trying to take my son from me. So it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I call. James answers the phone. I was trying to tell him. I was in Silver City, New Mexico, and they were in San Simon. And he didn't even ask what. I was trying to blah, 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 blah. This is what's happened. He's like, it doesn't matter. Just come on. Just come on. So here I go, you know, the wee hours of the morning. They just took me in. James hid my car in case my ex was looking for me, even though we were out in the middle of nowhere. It was just wonderful. Wonderful. Oh, the whole family. So I've always kind of felt like Jimmy's aunt. Carolyn's sister. Was really, really close to this family. And it's so interesting how we all ended up, you know, out west. And then I live in Vegas. Jim is in Vegas, and James was in Vegas. I got to spend some time with him long ago. So anyway, just wanted to say that. I've known James most of my life. I'm thinking about it. And that's pretty rare.
Thanks, Brenda.
James is probably going to hate me for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyways. My name is Elias, and I'm one of the originals that started in '96. You know, as you seen us walking in, the ones who didn't have the shirts, you know, we were all the ones who started around that time alone. And as I look around, I see everything, and you know, it's kind of funny because I can see them in these engines, you know.
But a lot of, the volunteers here, which is what I was, is they back then they relied on us, probably the late 90s, because hey, Mr. Hing was saying, we're just trying to get the department together, and there was always just one firefighter, like Melanie, I remember, and Bonnie, a lot of them, so they relied on a lot of us to cover a shift. So I worked for the city full-time, and then on my days off, I would cover a shift. So I remember I said, I had called and said, hey, I'm gonna cover a shift tomorrow, I'm off tomorrow. I'm like, all right, that's good. They go, who am I gonna be with? They go, James. I go, all right, cool, So I come in that morning, James is here, we're talking and stuff, and it was during the summer, I remember, and because it was hot, so we got a call over on the other side of town, and like I said, I won't say too much because a lot of these guys got junk on me too. So, I remember we got the call, it was a chest pain, and it was just me and him, we were in town. So we got out there, like I said, it was on the north side of town. We got down there, taking off our equipment and stuff. He's like, go ahead and hook the leads up on her and stuff. All right, so I'm hooking everything up. I turn around, look at the monitor, turn it on, I turn around and he's gone. I'm like, what the heck, where did he go, So I'm finishing up, doing the leads and stuff like that. And I asked the lady, one of the ladies that was there, and I go, hey, where's James at? She goes, he went that way. I go, where the heck did he go, man? So I'm there, and all of a sudden I hear like a toilet flush, And he walks out. He's like, I couldn't hold it, bro. And I'm like, oh my God. So we finished doing what we're doing. It ended up being a refuse. The lady, I guess she just had some anxiety or whatever. But I remember, we're getting in the unit, and I was laughing. And I go, did you really go? And he's like, I couldn't hold it. He goes, my guts were hurting and all that. I was like, oh my God. But that's one of the ones with all the bad calls, back then in the 90s, before that highway was split up to what it is now, we had a lot of bad calls, and, a lot of us there, we shared it. And James was always, like you said, so calm. We show up on some of these fatalities, and it hurt because we knew a lot of the people who were, getting killed on the highway and stuff, But he was always so calm, like you said, that voice of his, he'd come to you, are you okay, bro? Are you gonna be all right? Yeah, he goes, talk about it, we'll talk about it. I go, all right, we'll be good, But, man, rest in peace, James. Gonna miss you.
Thank you.
I worked with James a long time. He was a partner, a friend. The things I'll remember about him aren't primarily, all the blood and things we see on the road. I'll remember the time at the station. He was always the best station wife, always willing to spend time with you, laugh, take his part of the chores, just be there and be present in a job where you end up isolated quite often. He did a lot for the department. This truck was written on a grant that James wrote. He got over $1 million in grants for the department. And he was always willing to work more hours, work harder, and do more sacrifice than anyone else in the department. And during those hard periods when the department didn't have the money, didn't have the staff, didn't have the resources to do the job, they still did the job. And they did it because James was willing to put that extra effort in to make that personal sacrifice, to always be there. And the town, the fire department, everyone who lives here and was cared for by James owes him a huge debt of gratitude. He gave of himself and paid a cost for it and protected his community.
Assistant Chief James Gray. Alarm to 105. Assistant Chief James Gray. Alarm to 105. Assistant Chief James Gray. Assistant Chief James Gray, please report to Superior Fire Department. For your gathering with friends and family, this is your last assignment. Assistant Chief Gray, thank you for your dedicated 15 years as a firefighter and Assistant Chief serving the citizens of Superior and the Superior Fire Department. Assistant Chief Gray, you will be truly missed.